Welcome to the Grewalz show. मैं ਤੁਹਾਡਾ host ਗੁਰਿੰਦਰ ਸਿੰਘ ਗਰੇਵਾਲ। ਅੱਜ ਦੇ ਮੇਰੇ ਮਹਿਮਾਨ, ਮੇਰੇ guest, his worship, Mr. Patrick Brown, Mayor of City of Brampton, is with us. Through technology, we're going to be having a chat in regards to the City of Brampton and COVID-19. Welcome, Mr. Brown, to the Grewalz show.
Happy to be on the show.
Mr. Brown, as we all know, social distancing is now in place in City of Brampton. That's why we are not able to meet you in our studios. So you're in your home office, I'm in my home office, and we're going to be doing this show using the technology what we have. Right in the beginning, what I want to know from you is, as far as now COVID-19 has been around for several weeks, what's been going on with the City of Brampton as per se?
So you're right. We're all embarking upon physical distancing measures. We like to say physical distancing now, not social distancing, because we want people to be connected through technology like this. But the City of Brampton has been very active over the last number of weeks. We were one of the first cities to close our facilities right away 3 weeks ago. We deferred our property taxes for 5 months. I would note Mississauga's doing it for 3 months. Toronto's doing it for 2 months. So Brampton, was showing significant compassion in this period. It's not just a health pandemic; it's an economic tidal wave. We also set up task force, an economic support and recovery task force, a social support task force, a youth task force, and a seniors task force. And so, despite the fact that City Hall is closed, we're working on all cylinders to try to make sure we can weather this pandemic and get back up on our feet when it's finally over. So it's been a very busy time at City Hall.
As we all know, all the time, City of Brampton is very busy. There's council meetings, there's regional meetings. How are all those meetings happening nowadays?
So we're still having meetings, but we do so digitally. So through technology like this, we're able to get everyone together.
Oh, okay. And are there any new decisions which have come out in the last couple of weeks?
Well, there's been a flurry of activity. So everything from the free transit to protect the transit operators, to the property tax deferral, to letting all the tenants at city facilities. We have 41 city facilities, letting the not-for-profits waive their rent for 3 months, deferring the rent for the for-profits. I have done advocacy to the federal government on credit cards, the provincial government on insurance. And we also brought in fines for those that failed to apply the physical distancing guidelines. So Brampton has some very strict fines that range from $500 to $100,000. So those are just to name a few. So we've had a number of announcements over the last few weeks of decisions that the city has taken. Just last week we closed all 500 parks. We're keeping trails open so people can walk, with their family members, but we can't have people in crowds anymore. It's just too dangerous.
Now, as we understand, for the city, revenue is a big thing. Money has to come in for city to operate. When you're having free bus rides, no income coming from city facilities, what's going to happen to the city revenue?
So obviously, if we're delaying the collection of property taxes for 5 months, there is a cost to that. When you don't collect bus fare, there's a cost that we lose money right now on transit every week. Having said that, the safety of our transit operators is more important than any revenue. We've already had 2 transit operators test positive for COVID. I can't risk their health. Fortunately, the City of Brampton has been good managers over the last number of years. So, we're in a position where we could do this. But obviously, the longer this lasts, the more it's going to be difficult financially.
And how long do you think this pandemic is going to last, as far as your knowledge or the health officials who have been advising you?
So I think it's fair to say that the physical distancing measures will be in place at least until the end of June, and then maybe beyond that. I think there could be a period where the measures are relaxed in the summer, and then we could expect a second wave in the fall. So, so we're not looking until there's a vaccine. We're not out of the woods, and it could take a year to get a vaccine.
So when we are looking at the number of months which all these things will stay in place. If there is no revenue coming to City of Brampton, will Brampton house property taxes go up next year?
Right now, I would hope that isn't the case. And I would do everything I can to make sure that isn't the case. This is a difficult period. So I'm not going to get into hypotheticals of how long this could last or what it would mean for the finances. That's all still fluid. I would just say we'll do our best to manage it.
Thing which has come out is in the public that Region of Peel has Caledon, Brampton, and Mississauga under their wing. Mississauga POA Court and Caledon POA Court both state on their voicemail that they will open up on May the 29th. But Brampton POA Court says that it will open up after April the 3rd. Why is that?
So you'll see the POA courts to be synchronized in timing.
So what you're saying is that they might align the same dates to May 29th?
I would expect that none of those courts are going to be open for quite some time. I'm not sure which voicemail you called, but it could be just the fact there's no one there to update the voicemail.
Another thing which has come out in the open, and you've publicly talked about it, is regional testing for COVID-19. That there have been 16 people who were given the wrong test results. Is there any action being taken against the regional office which was doing those testing?
So our regional medical officer health is Dr. Lawrence Lowe. And let me say that the healthcare workers working with Dr. Lowe are phenomenal. I love our nurses. I love our doctors. They're under a great deal of stress right now. There's a great weight of responsibility put on their backs. And the first thing we should say is how grateful we are to our frontline healthcare workers and our healthcare leadership. Having said that, Dr. Lowe acknowledged that they made a mistake. They sent out 16 letters to people that they'd already told that were positive. Fortunately, they managed to fix their mistake. They called everyone before they got the letter, letting them know that it was mailed in error. Only one person had received the letter before they got in touch with them, and that one person hadn't left the home. And so, fortunately, there was no exposure to the public, and I trust Dr. Lowe when he says they've learned from this experience, and they're going to be focused on an online portal now rather than a snail mail.
So based on the new portal, you think that this mistake will not happen again, or is that just a way of doing things in the near future?
Dr. Lowe tells me, the physicians and the healthcare workers who do this, they tell me that it was a clerical error that won't happen again, and I'm going to trust our physicians when they tell me that it's not going to happen again.
Now, another thing which has been very publicly talked about or spoken in the news media is regarding the fine which City of Brampton gave out to an individual or individuals. Can you tell us about that?
So we believe very strongly that right now, if you don't follow the guidelines of physical distancing, it's going to cost lives. We've already had a number of Brampton residents die because of COVID-19. I don't want to see more die. And the only way to flatten the curve, the only way to help diminish the fatalities is through physical distancing. And so we brought in place fines that range from $500 to $100,000. Now, the first night that we brought the fines in, we had a 27-year-old who thought it'd be a good idea to have a house party, invited 20 friends over to his backyard. Let me say very clearly, this is not the time to have a keg party. This is not the time to have a backyard party. No time for tailgate parties, no time for celebrations. Right now, we're in a health pandemic. So that individual is facing a significant fine. It'll be up to the justice of the peace to decide how significant it will be, but it can range from $500 to $100,000. And I hope this will be an example for others. This is not party time. Just because you're at home, it's not party time. Don't risk the health of neighbors, of family members, of loved ones. Don't be foolish.
Now, if for instance, a homeowner does have a get-together at their house and they do invite 20 people, do all 20 people also get a fine?
They may.
Because they are all part of the non-social distancing.
Listen, in this case, the party that happened last week, they fined the person hosting the party, but we're certainly prepared to fine everyone that attends. We're serious about this.
Now, another big thing in Brampton is Chinguzi Park and Heart Lake Conservation Area. Are people able to go and enjoy those two big places?
So if you want to go with your wife, a loved one, a family member, to go for a walk, just the two of you on the trail, then you're allowed to. But the parks are not open. The conservation there is not open. You can't go and play cricket or play baseball or soccer. It is closed. Right now we're maintaining our trails, but if people abuse that, we'll close the trails as well.
And is there any construction going on which was already happening in City of Brampton under the City of Brampton guidelines?
So the essential service guidelines are set by the province, and the province Premier Ford has exempt construction. So constructions can still happen. They've limited some industrial construction, but they still allow construction to happen.
Now, living in Canada, as we all know, our Right Honorable Prime Minister, Mr. Justin Trudeau, always does have meetings with their premiers. Do you also have meetings with our Premier, Mr. Doug Ford?
So I speak to the provincial ministers and Premier Ford on a regular basis, and I speak to the federal government on a regular basis as well. I have a weekly meeting with the Deputy Prime Minister, Chrystia Freeland, and so I'd say there's ongoing active dialogue with both the provincial and federal government.
And Mr. Brown, as we all know, you're the most liked mayor in the City of Brampton, and you're always busy with community functions. So what are you doing nowadays on the weekends when there is no social gathering going on?
Well, despite the fact that everything is closed, we've still been swamped. I've got conference calls every day with the Region Appeal, with public health. We've got our task force going, media interviews like this. So my weekends are still pretty busy. And fortunately, I'm able to do a lot of that from my home office. I also go into our emergency management center. We have an emergency management center in the City of Brampton where all our key officials are working, obviously separated by physical distance, but I can see the work of the city emergency services through our EOC.
And when we're talking about social distancing and the traffic on the highways, now that most of the businesses are closing down, do you see construction gonna start happening in the summer of this year in City of Brampton?
So there could be construction. It's not that list of what's allowed is set by the province, and so construction is considered an essential service. So there very well could be construction unless the province changes or brings down their essential services list. Well, but ultimately, that would be a choice of the province.
We also want to hear from the mayor itself as to what you would say to the City of Brampton citizens as to how they can save themselves from COVID-19.
Well, the number one way is physical distancing. Obviously, washing your hands are good practices. Making sure that if you're elderly, if you're over the age of 7, you should not be leaving your home. Get a loved one to help get your groceries or medications. But the number one way we're going to get through this is to flatten the curve and embrace physical distancing.
But when you're talking about flattening the curve, you still think that it's going to be several months before things will start to open up and be normal?
I'm sure people would love for me to say that it's going to be over in a few weeks, but I believe in speaking honestly and being transparent with the public. It's not going to be over in a few weeks. This is going to be a matter of months. This is going to be a very difficult year.
Well, thank you, Your Worship, Mr. Brown, to be on our show, on the Grewalz Show and Punjab Star. And we also would like to thank Nick Guhonia for having this all happen on a very short notice.